Ancient Rome, quick lesson number 2. Here we have a map of Italy with a red circle towards the northern section and an arrow pointing down to the city of Rome. So the original people who settled in Rome came from the northern section of Italy. They were called Latins and Etruscans. The Latins spoke Latin, which is where that word comes from, and that eventually became the language that the Romans spoke. The Etruscan people taught the Romans how to build arches. And if you look at the picture of the aqueduct, you can see how many arches were used to construct that building. Now, the Romans were definitely influenced by the Greeks in a lot of ways, but especially in terms of architecture. So if you look at the Pantheon in Rome, it definitely looks a lot like the Parthenon in Athens, Greece. It has the columns in the front. Now, the big difference is in the back of the Pantheon, there's a big round building attached to it, but the front of the buildings definitely look very similar. So the Romans did learn how to build dome ceilings. So here's another picture of the Pantheon, and then you have a picture inside looking up at the ceiling, which is dome-shaped, and you can see the oculus, which allowed sunlight to come through, and it basically worked like a clock. It kind of gave people an idea as to what time of day it was. The Pantheon was built to honor all the gods and goddesses, and so the Roman people would worship here. The Romans also learned how to build concrete. So part of the Pantheon is built out of concrete. And concrete makes construction faster and a lot of times easier. And it lasts sometimes just as long as marble. If any of you went to Mulberry Elementary, you might recognize Mrs. Dingus in this photograph. She's in there with her family and friends. And this is taken at Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. And right behind them is a picture, or I'm sorry, there's a building behind them. And if you look up at it, it kind of looks like the inside of the ceiling of the Pantheon. If you can compare those two pictures, it looks kind of similar. So right here in Columbus, Ohio, we've got buildings that kind of look like or resemble ancient Roman architecture. Also, in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., we have a lot of buildings that have dome ceilings. So, again, we are influenced by the Greeks. We have a lot of buildings in our capital that have the columns, but we also have buildings that have domes, and that's an influence that comes from the ancient Roman people. All roads lead to Rome. This was a popular saying back then because at one point, the Roman Empire became so big that literally almost any road that you took would eventually take you back to Rome. The Roman system of roads was called Via Appia. In Latin, via means way. And Via Appia is sometimes called the Appian Way. Bathhouses. Very few people had private bathrooms in their homes, and as a result, most people had to go to a public bathhouse to get clean. There were 3 types of baths at every bathhouse. There was a tepidarium, which was kind of like a lukewarm water. There was a caldarium, which is very hot water. That's where we get words like cauldron and scalding. And there's the frigidarium, that was the cold water. And of course, today we use words like refrigerator to keep things cold. Or if you just wanted to describe the weather outside, if it's really cold out, you would say it's very frigid outside. The Circus Maximus offered lots of enjoyment and entertainment for the ancient Roman people. They loved to watch the chariot races take place there. The Romans also enjoyed going to the Colosseum. So here's an aerial photograph of the Colosseum looking down from the sky. Today you can see that it's right next to some major roads, but of course back then those roads were not there. This was the hub of the city. It was located right in the center near the Forum, so this was a great place for people to get some entertainment and to watch a gladiator fight. Now again, the Greek word colossus means huge, so that's why this building is called the Colosseum. So even though the Romans didn't speak Greek, the Greek language and the Latin language, their alphabet and a lot of their words are very similar. So that's why certain words look similar or have a similar spelling. Spartacus was a gladiator, a very famous gladiator. He was born in Thrace, which is near Greece. He was captured by the Romans and forced into slavery. Some slaves were used for farming, others were used around the house, and some slaves were sent to gladiator school. In the year 73 BCE, Spartacus convinced 70 other slaves to revolt. They grabbed knives and other utensils from the kitchen as weapons. They broke out of the gladiator school, and for the next 2 years, they traveled from city to city, gathering more slaves in their army. By 71 BCE, Spartacus led an army of 70,000 men. Spartacus and his men were defeated by the Roman legions, but his legacy lives on. For centuries, his story was told, especially by plebeians who did not have equal rights. They respected him for fighting to his death for freedom. The Punic Wars. So, what happened was the Carthaginians attacked Sicily, and then Rome sent ships and soldiers to help Sicily. So, if you look at the map, Carthage is located at the bottom in Africa, and they were trying to attack Sicily, and the Romans decided to help them. There were 3 wars altogether. The Carthaginians lost each war. And in addition to that, they also lost a lot of colonies and territories to the Romans. And of course, this helped the Roman Empire grow and become bigger and more powerful than it had been. Hannibal was the Carthaginian military leader. You can see his route in the red up in the map above. You can see the route that he took to get to Rome. He did have some trouble crossing the Alps because of all the, first of all, how steep they were, and also because of the snow and ice. So a lot of his elephants and men fell to their death, unfortunately, during that crossing. This is a very famous painting of an elephant during the Carthaginian and the Roman War. And finally, Rome destroyed the city of Carthage at the end of the Third War. They poured salt all over their farmlands so that nothing could grow, and they set fire to pretty much everything else. So pretty much for a long time after the Punic Wars, nobody really lived in Carthage because it was uninhabitable. And that is your quick lesson number 2.